So in all of my time being a manifestation coach, I have realized that one of the biggest tells, if not the biggest tell, of how well you're manifesting or what you're really manifesting is how are you genuinely reacting and responding to the 3D reality. And I know that sounds like a big thing to say because it is, but we are going to get into that in this video because how you are responding to the 3D, that is what is telling you what is really alive within you. And as you know, what manifests in the 3D reality is what you're genuinely keeping alive within you. So let's talk more about this so that we can help you to make the 3D stop contradicting you in what you're manifesting. Before we jump into that, I will introduce myself to those of you who do not know me. My name is Genevieve. I'm a manifestation coach. I mainly talk about law of assumption, Neville Goddard type things, but I also talk a lot about emotional things, somatic tools you can use to help your emotions because I found that to be very complementary to doing proper law of assumption work. Because if you're not really regaining empowered ownership of your emotions, your emotional reactions to yourself and to the world, then it's going to be difficult to have that like long game view of manifestation in terms of like having a long-term, like, yeah, what I'm manifesting, the big important things that I want, I really sustainably relate to those things. It's not just like a quick fix I'm trying to do and I'm ignoring my emotions. So anyway, so that's a big thing I talk a lot about. If you want to work with me, there are links down below for different courses that you can do. Also, you can do a one-on-one with me if you want to do that. Or you can also join the membership portion of this channel because on the membership portion of this channel, that's where I post more in-depth like trainings and meditations and I just give more in-depth practices that you can do. I kind of assign you more homework and give you more in-depth things to go into. So if you want to join that portion of the channel, make sure there's 3 tiers and make sure you pick the tier that reflects the actual level of content that you want and also the level that you want to work with me, because the highest tier you actually get to ask me a couple questions via email every month, and so that's an even more like in-depth way to work with me. So anyway, check all that out. Just all the links are below. And now let's get into this. So obviously something that you hear a lot, especially if you are consuming a lot of manifestation content, you hear a lot to ignore the 3D, don't react to the 3D. But as I've said before, and I'll say again, often when people hear the phrase ignore the 3D, they go into fearful avoidance of the 3D. They think that means like, oh, just pretend that nothing's bad happening and just like put a smile on your face and just pretend to be confident, when really you are having a genuine reaction to the 3D, but you're just so afraid to face what your genuine reaction to the 3D is that you're just pretending to put on blinders and just be like, oh, just be positive, and you're like white knuckling through your fearful avoidance of the 3D. And when we say ignore the 3D, that is absolutely not what you're supposed to do. That is not at all what you're supposed to do. That is going to really hurt you in the long run if you are interpreting ignore the 3D as avoid the 3D because it's scary or whatever. So I also understand though that it can feel really scary and overwhelming when the 3D reality is seemingly still contradicting you. And by that, what I mean is you are intending one thing, maybe you're affirming, you're practicing holding your state in the state of the wish fulfilled, and in that state you have certain things, but let's say the 3D reality is really not showing you any proof that that's true, although proof is actually not a real thing. The only proof of what is actual reality is what is genuinely alive inside of you. The 3D reality never gives you proof. It simply reflects as a mirror, which I'm sure you've also heard before, it reflects as a mirror what you genuinely take seriously, what you genuinely expect to happen, what you genuinely believe is true about you, is true about the people in your life. That is what the 3D reality is reflecting. And I use the word genuine a lot because this is going to tie into this whole thing about how are you really genuinely reacting and responding in the face of your current 3D. Because a lot of people think that, oh, manifesting just happens because if I just say an affirmation enough, it'll just happen. And what's interesting about affirmations, and actually why I like them, is because in a lot of instances that can be true, where if you do just do a robotic affirmation enough, you will often see like, oh, there's that thing that I was like imprinting into my subconscious. But I've noticed, at least in my experience and the thing that I've seen in my clients, that will either sometimes cause a partial manifestation where it'll come in a little bit, like especially if you're manifesting an SP, for example, because that's a popular example. So let's say they come in a little bit and they start to be like, oh, whoa, they're like here, they're doing the thing I want them to do. But then they'll kind of go back out. And the reason they go back out is because they come in and then you, the manifester, you start to go right back into fear. You start to genuinely respond or react to the 3D right back into that fear of like, oh no, but maybe it won't last, or I don't know what to do next, or like, I don't know, like, and this is also, this is a side note, but this is extremely common, and I need to make a video about it, about how do you respond when, you know, your SP starts to conform, especially when it comes to SPs, because yeah, I've had so many clients where they get almost more triggered by having their SP start to communicate with them again than they were in being in no contact with their SP. So it's definitely a thing to talk about, but in the context of this video, I'll just say you do need to maintain the state. And this is why I'm saying that if you're just doing kind of like, okay, I'm just going to do the robotic affirmations and all this, but then most of your actual existence is spent in a particular kind of engagement with reality, a particular kind of assumption about reality that maybe you don't even realize you're still holding on to about reality. This is also a fascinating thing that I've discovered in doing this work for so long, is so many of our assumptions, especially those really important assumptions about our self-concept, are so deeply subconscious, maybe even unconscious, and that they're so deeply rooted in our programming of who we think we are based on very early childhood experiences that we are so like not even aware like how much those deeper assumptions are really like controlling our reality. And so when it comes to your emotions, I want you to use your emotions as a way to get more clarity on what's really happening deeper inside of you. Because when you have an emotional reaction to something, especially if it's an unexpected emotional reaction where you're just sort of going along and then all of a sudden, you know, you're triggered by, I don't know, something your SP says that's maybe just a random thing they say, and you're suddenly like really reactive to that, and you're not even sure like where that's coming from, but you're just like, whoa, I'm just really reactive to them saying this, or I'm really reactive to them posting this and like the words they said on their social media posts. Like for some reason I'm interpreting it in this very specific way about myself that's like kind of surprising to me, or you know, it's like something that's like, it's just like, whoa, it's a really big reaction over something that like probably doesn't need that big of a reaction. This is a gift to you when you have these moments where you're suddenly triggered, or you know, it's like you're kind of caught off guard by your emotional reaction to something, because that is giving you the gift of consciousness around a deeper, probably very latent subconscious assumption inside of you that's so subconscious that it only becomes aware to you in the moments that you're having an emotional trigger about it. So that is kind of a tangent but not a tangent, because I do want to emphasize how important that is in terms of the whole message of this video. Is I want you to pay attention to what is it that is getting your goat still in the 3D. Like, so if you, for example, if you're affirming all the time, like again, we'll just stick with the SP example, you know, so you're affirming all the time, okay, my SP loves me, my SP chooses me, I'm the only one that my SP wants. If you're affirming those things, but then you're looking out of the 3D reality and it's directly contradicting you, because let's say in this example, the SP has a third party that is like, you know, SP's not choosing the manifester, SP's choosing the third party. And the manifester can't help but keep noticing that contradiction. So this is what I found, to go back to what I said in the very beginning of this video, this is what I found to be key, is the way that you are reacting in current time to that seemingly contradiction. That tells you how well your manifestation is really working. Because if you can look at And when I say look at, I don't mean like stare at it. I don't mean like you're on their social media, like really like looking at it. I just mean that you can be simply aware of that. Okay, in my current 3D reality, in terms of what I'm aware of in the current 3D reality, what I'm aware of is that my SP is potentially with this third party. Like that's in my awareness in terms of, and of course it makes sense. These are old creations of reality. It makes sense based on my old programming and the way that I pushed out through, all that stuff. It makes sense or whatever. You're just simply aware of it. And then the level of emotional reaction, and I say emotional because again, it's that emotional key that is going to tell you what you really believe. Like what you're emotional about tells you what you really believe. So whenever you get hooked in a negative trigger or a negative emotion, I want you to investigate. Like I want you to do some self-inquiry and ask yourself, where is this coming from? Why am I using the really stupid circumstance of my SP temporarily choosing a third party? Why am I using that circumstance to like get myself so upset? Because I'm only upset about it because I truly believe that that circumstance means something about me. I wouldn't be so emotional about it. I wouldn't be reacting to it if I didn't believe that it genuinely means something about me. So again, the way you know that you're doing well in a particular manifestation is that you can genuinely be a lot more neutral to things in the 3D that seemingly contradict your manifestation. And I know I've been using the SP example a lot in this video, but this still applies to everything. Like this applies to if you're manifesting body changes. And I will say about body changes, I've never met a client who was manifesting body changes who wasn't in like complete lack of self-acceptance. Like often the only reason you feel that you need to have a different nose or that you need to lose 20 pounds or that you need to change your body in some way, often that is coming from an internalized self-rejection, internalized self-hate. So this is obviously a little bit of a tangent, but I'm bringing it up because if you are still looking at your body in the current 3D and you are saying, you're looking in the mirror and you're saying, fuck, I'm still fat, or oh my God, my nose still hasn't changed. This is what I mean by the way you're reacting to the current 3D circumstance, the current 3D moment, the way you're genuinely reacting, the way you're genuinely appraising the value of, the way you are genuinely giving power to the current 3D moment. That says everything about the health of your manifestation or about the actual progress of your manifestation. Because if you are, to go with the body change example some more, if you are affirming, 100 times a day, oh, I've got a super small nose, I've got a super small nose, I've got a super small, or whatever the heck it is, but you're still looking in the mirror all day. Oh, no, you're not all day, but a lot of the day obsessively, looking at your nose and being like, oh my God, is it small enough yet? Like, I don't know if it's changed yet. That's what we mean by you cannot do that. You cannot react to the 3D in that way. You cannot look at the 3D and still be giving it so much power. What you know you are supposed to be doing is living in the genuine reality of, I already have the perfect nose. I am so fucking self-accepting. Excuse my French, but it's so important. I'm so freaking self-accepting. I am no longer operating with any of my manifestations from a place of internalized, very subconscious self-hate. I'm no longer projecting from that place because the results won't be good. And it's just going to pattern those subconscious assumptions even more. And obviously now I'm using the body example, but this can also play out in SP manifestations as well, in terms of like, are you fixating on that very specific person because you feel like that special person has like a specific power over you? Like, this is also why we say like, take them off the pedestal, because if you're giving them so much meaning where it's like, I've internalized self-rejection, so I'm projecting onto them that if that special person picks me, then that will heal in a subconscious way. And it's a fallacy. It doesn't actually work because the problem, the belief that started the problem will never be the belief that solves the problem. So even though the belief thinks that if I get this special guy to pick me, that will heal every rejection wound I've ever had, or if I get the perfect nose, that will heal all of my body image issues, like that does not work. And it's basically scientifically proven that that doesn't work. There's a really great book. It's an older book called Psycho-Cybernetics, and I totally consider it a manifestation book. It was written by a plastic surgeon named Maxwell Maltz, I believe. And he talks about this because he's a freaking plastic surgeon. He talks about how self-identity is so important because the people who are kind of like addicted to plastic surgery, it's like it's never enough. Like it doesn't matter how many surgeries they have done. If they never fix the thing inside of them that says that they're so ugly, that says that they're not enough yet, it doesn't matter if a plastic surgeon gives them the perfect face. They will continue to not see it. Like he actually says that he actually says like he'll hold a mirror up to, you know, a beautiful person who now has the exact nose they wanted or whatever. And that person like physically cannot see it. Like all they see is they continue to just see the problems. They continue to find problems. And so that's why I'm bringing this up. This isn't just like a thing that I'm saying just for fun. I'm saying this is a very true like scientific thing that you cannot be manifesting from the wound, from the problem, the part of you that thinks that there's a deficit within you, and therefore somehow getting the perfect guy that you're obsessed with to choose you is going to fix that, or to get the perfect body is going to fix that. It does not work that way. And now I'm on such a big tangent now, but it's obviously important for me to say that right now because I mean it's not just a tangent because it ties into what I'm saying here. Because if that stuff, that very subconscious stuff is still very dominant in you, you are going to notice that you are continuing in an almost seemingly powerless or uncontrollable way. You are going to notice that you still can't seem to stop yourself from reacting to the 3D or, you know, just always seeming to be so upset about the 3D. So let's get into a little deeper, like how do you fix that? And the easy kind of superficial answer that most coaches parrot, and it's not that it's untrue. It is true. Like you do need to learn how to ignore the 3D. The 3D is the realm of physical shadows. There is nothing out there that is more valuable than you. You have to learn, and I think I talked about this in the last video I made about the 3D. You have to learn that you are all the power. You are God. This is why we say that. You are God. You are everything you want is already inside of you, and you just have to learn to trust that, to be more reliant on the knowing that all the love you want really is within you. You have to practice coaxing it out and trusting it and building a relationship to it, and everything that you want is within you. And this is, again, the real true cause of big physical manifestations, is that you start to genuinely trust the new dynamic that you're choosing, and if that's with a person, or if that's with money, or if that's with your body image, you're picking a new dynamic, a new way of relating in a very genuine way to those people, places, and things. And you're realizing it's never been about that person, place, or thing. It's been about the way I've been reacting to it, the way that I've been responding to it. So when we say ignore the 3D, don't react to the 3D, what we're really saying is turn towards yourself in the most empowered way that you can. And my way that I have found to do this, I mean, there's lots of ways, but when it comes to the big issues that I've kind of brought up in this video, in terms of like really deep stuff that you can't seem to let go of, like you just can't seem to let go of being bothered by a third party. And of course that makes sense. This is also like a thing I'll say, is this does take practice, like especially when it comes to your important manifestations. It is not always easy to immediately just be like completely neutral to the 3D. Like it's gonna take you practice. But that's the thing, is you cannot give up on yourself just because you're not instantly good at being completely neutral to the 3D. You have to be consistent. You have to keep reminding yourself, like, okay, there's nothing out there that I need. If I'm reacting to this 3D circumstance, I need to turn within myself. I need to do some self-inquiry and ask, what am I making this mean about me? Like, why am I responding to this as if this is meaningful. Like, why am I putting my focus on this as if this is such a big freaking deal? Because nobody's making it a big deal except me. I'm the operant power of my reality. And if I'm making something a big deal, I need to work with myself around that, especially if it's something that I don't want to make a big deal. I want to be free of that. I don't want to be attached to these negative circumstances anymore. So, because again, if the 3D is contradicting you, especially if it's been a long time, and when I say long time, that's a very subjective term, but long time in terms of like it's been weeks or months or even years for some of you. So it's been a long time of the 3D, you know, not seeming to change when it comes to this particular thing or this particular person, then there's definitely something going on within you, and it needs to be explored. So I'll also say though, that there is, and I think I talked about this too in the last 3D video I made, there is a very natural waiting time, or I don't even know what else to call it. Like, the 3D is always behind you. So it's not usually going to instantly match your new assumption. So it often takes like the sweet spot that I've seen, and it's not a perfect rule by any means at all. It can definitely change. But the trend that I've seen in terms of time frames is that the 3D tends to change in roughly on average about 3 weeks after you start to really embody the state. And again, I almost don't even like saying that, because for some people it totally can be faster, and for some people it can definitely be longer than that. Like, but the thing I like to tell clients though is that if it's taking more than a month, like if you're seeing nothing change, or if things are getting worse over the course of the month, then it's a really good time to be like, okay, nothing's changing, or things are getting consistently worse. I need to do some self-inquiry again. I need to do some inventory on myself again, because clearly there's stuff still alive in me that is attached to this stuff, because I wouldn't be continuing to create this weeks in if it's still freaking here. So again, I don't like to say that time frame thing, but I can't help but notice there is a little bit of an average. That's really what it is. It's not so much a trend, but an average of about 3 weeks is when you'll start to see some change. So anyway, I think I covered it in this. I just want you to do some healthy self-questioning. Like, stop avoiding yourself, because the 3D, it's not really contradicting you. It's just that you are so used to giving value and power to certain circumstances, and you haven't learned yet how to genuinely take away that power, and then genuinely be neutral, and be able to very temporarily accept that your SP has a third party or whatever, and like not make it mean anything about you. You're just genuinely detached. You're like not making it a big deal at all. So, and again, the way you know that you are doing well is if you genuinely are feeling less triggered, more neutral, and also believing in the wish fulfilled, because that's another thing here, is that you are embracing in a very active way the new dynamic that you're choosing. And by embracing, what I mean is you're feeling alive inside of you, the believability that, yeah, me and my SP do have a totally committed, amazing relationship. We communicate all the time, you know, all those things. So there we go. I think that's good for today. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I will see you guys in my next video. All right, bye.